friends, I'm happy to welcome you all to this episode of the Thought Leadership Show from Quadrant Knowledge Solutions, where we invite business and technology leaders to share their leadership perspectives in various areas. So, our guest speaker today is Mr. L Ravichandran, who was the President and Chief Operating Officer at Tech Mahindra, and he was also the member of the Group Executive Board in the Mahindra Group, who retired recently. In a career spanning more than 40 years, he has played a significant part in building and delivering businesses to many Fortune 500 organizations across the world. And currently, he is the founder of AIThoughts.org, which is the platform to share, discuss, and advise enterprises on the best use of artificial intelligence. So, Mr. Ravichandran, thanks for coming to our show, and I'm happy to welcome you to this Thought Leadership Show by Quadrant Knowledge Solutions. Pleasure having you here. So, to start with, I would maybe you can just give your brief introduction because you have a huge experience in the IT industry. So, if you can just brief us on your experience so far.
Thank you for having me in this show. I think I've been very fortunate enough to be part of great IT industry right from its early inception. And it was 1978 August when I started with Department of Electronics, the Government of India, basically as a programmer. But it was a good thing because I was a gazetted officer, and being gazetted officer those days was a very big kind of thing. I used to sign all the certificates, photostat copies, and then I've been basically part of 3 large industrial groups which are IT services. I've been part of the Tatas through their joint venture with basically called Tata Unisys, and then I've been part of HCL joint venture with Pero Systems. So it was HCL Pero Systems. And then the last stint was with the Mahindra Group, where I have been the CEO Tech Mahindra for a long time. And my passion is technology. My passion is actually customer delivery. My passion is solutions and getting large deals, complex deals. And so I've been basically part of the growth story. And I think the last one has been basically really good, because we started Tech Mahindra British Telecom. It was a $110 million company, and then when I retired, it was a $5 billion plus company. So it has been like a great experience. And I returned back from US in 1991, very early to return back, one of the early guys to return back, and then settled in Bangalore for the last 8 years.
Very huge experience in the IT industry. Okay, to start with, then I would like to ask you this obvious question that what do you think are the business leadership priorities in today's highly competitive but at the same time it's a volatile business and economic conditions?
I think the industry has gone through a few ups and downs in my career. We have to face through the dot-com burst. We have to finish. We took advantage of the Y2K. And then we have to take a hit on basically .com, etc. So the industry is resilient. And I know that today one of the biggest problems is the skills problem. That how do we basically retain talent? How do we reskill talent? And how do we get the large number of digital skills which are required in the market? That is the number one priority I see when I was there. And even now I talk to everybody, the CEOs and COOs and chief recruitment officers are sitting and talking about it. And it's because the need for digitization, need for faster transformation projects, what used to take 5 years, and I do it in 2 years, has become accelerated due to COVID. Because of the 2-year kind of an industry. So all the enterprises are no longer willing to wait for 3 to 5 years. And they are saying, maybe 18 months, can you deliver a transformative solution? And so the business is plenty. And I think the basically on the supply side, both on the people side and then on the enablement side in terms of how quickly basically IT services company can start looking at reusable templates and the whole infrastructure to support digital development, because it is just not the number of people which is going to solve the problem. And so there is a change in mindset with all the companies that are coming through. So it is just not adding hundreds of people, but basically how do we add the people, how do we give them the tools, how do we give them the automation, how do we give them various infrastructure facilities to make sure that they are delivering at the right speed and then to the right quality. I think that these two things, otherwise I think for some time to come, I think a demand side will be there. And so in fact, all of them are focusing on the supply and delivery side.
Mm-hmm. Okay, then artificial intelligence, as everybody is aware, is a buzzword now, and it seems it will continue to refine the business processes in the coming months or coming years. So, do you think there is a huge gap between the AI and ML advances and enterprise usage, and how enterprises can make the best use of AI, and what is the way forward in this area?
Basically thought occurred to almost everyone, including Andrew, who is the number one guru in AI, and he himself started a company called Landing.ai, because he basically said there is no need for any more research on more and more deep neural networks, more and more refining the models. What is there is so huge, most of them open source, but the enterprises are not getting the benefit out of it. And so I think this is one technology where the maturity of the technology is reached, but I think maturity of the implementation has not reached to even basically 10% levels, and there is still 90% gap.
True.
And I think the next solution of problem, because whenever people used to think about digital, they used to say, okay, let me go from on-premise to cloud. Let me go from legacy kind of systems to SAP HANA or SFPC or ServiceNow or Workday. And so the newer product implementation, but it is a older product implementation replaced by newer product implementation. And older boxes getting replaced by basically cloud infrastructure. But what is the fundamental difference of AI? That you could make decisions by looking at the image in a factory.
True.
You just need image processing, video processing, natural language processing, scan documents, and make decisions. And people can actually use conversational AI to communicate with the customer. And then the autonomous kind of devices, the IoT, the cars, and the various applications which are available. And so they have not really used it. I think that is where I believe enterprises should basically focus and get the right skills in their company before even going to the SIs, whether it is Tech Mahindra, whether it is Infosys, whether it is Accenture. Get their house in order and get some of their top people basically trained on basics of the technology, what works, because they need to know what to ask the vendors. Because this is entirely a revolutionary technology. And so big changes are required from the customer side, big changes are required from the SI side. And I think SIs are getting ready, but without the enterprise getting ready, it has to, that particular match is not going to happen.
So you feel there is this gap in terms of the knowledge and training, even with the big organizations?
Correct. A huge gap there, saying that what use cases basically should I pick up? For example, if you look at some of the thoughts being done by the AI experts in the field is, let us look at quality inspection at the end of the line in the factory. Basically a random sample of whatever lots come out, it goes through a big assembly line and the final product comes out. And a lot of people, quality checkers who are checking for scratches, this, that, passing or failing a batch. and that determines the whole batch will fail, whole batch will pass. And how can you automate it using just basically few cameras? Because we know that basically complex model can be built which is going to mimic the quality control person's head and say how to look for what is a good product, what is not a good product, what are the kind of defects, and so that people have to understand that these kind of difficult tasks which have been never automated, it is possible with the current technology to automate. And so first thing is for them to get their imagination out of the current digital thinking, which is I'll go to cloud, I've gone digital, I've implemented few IoT and camera sensors in my factory. So my factory is basically IoT, and but maybe it is just the temperature or something. What are the use cases, and how do I identify the project? How do you make sure I get the right skills within my company who can drive internally and pick the right partner? The SIs are required. The partner can work with them. And then there is also another big problem which is being talked about, which is pilot production. There are lots of projects which are successfully pilot, but never see light of the day in production. Cases for the wrong use case for the end users and don't want to put it into production and upset their life. And in some cases that they're not confident, because as we know, AI models will come and say, I'm 80% confident, I'm 90% confident. And the user says, what do you mean? I need 100% confidence. And I'm not going to put this into production with the 95% confidence. What about to the 5%? But on a daily basis, we put people who use the same 95% logic in their head. That you don't have a problem. But you do it. The same 95%, human may do it at 85. But the models can do 95 today. But still, they are saying, what about the 5%? So you have to educate the end users, you have to educate internally, and pick the right use cases, make a few successful projects, and show that kind of with the right kind of steps at the top level.
We're coming to that concept of flowing from top to bottom. In my next question. But before that, I just want to ask you, in one of your blogs, you had mentioned a case that if a self-driven car hits a human being, who is responsible for that? Whether the car company or the AI product company, or is the AI designer or developer, or the AI car itself. So what would you like to share your thoughts on this?
In fact, usually that US Silicon Valley is first in technology coming up, and European Union first in regulation. And they have in fact circulated a draft AI Act, Artificial Intelligence Act, and circulated to all their countries so that they give them about 6 to 9 months to read internally. They will discuss it in the EU Parliament, and by 2023 it will pass as a law. And they're talking about what kind of laws and the liabilities which they can put by, which can be administered by a court of law.
Okay.
And if you look at it, only lately that only Mercedes-Benz has actually applied and got what is called the L3 autonomous. If you look at Tesla, which is the most common thing which comes to everybody's mind, they are still L2 compliant, because you have to have a driver sitting all the time, whether Tesla is driving or you are driving. And only you are liable. You need to have a driver's license, and then you are liable, and your car insurance is liable. It is like you use Tesla autopilot or not, that is irrelevant to the law. But only last few weeks, actually Mercedes said certain highways during daytime with no clouds and a limit of 50 miles an hour, which is about 80 kilometers, that basically you could drive, where the liabilities will be taken by Mercedes-Benz.
Okay.
So if there is an accident, if there is a medical claim, if there is a damage, but what happened if the other passenger dies? So they can only take your responsibility of only the financial responsibility. But do you think some executive from Mercedes-Benz will go to jail for basic culpable homicide or whatever charges? No. And so it is a very open topic. And but AI and ethics is a very big upcoming topic.
True.
In fact, within the AI, in addition to AI for enterprise, how to help companies. And my personal thing where I'm going to teach is on AI and ethics. So what is responsible AI? And what should the developer do? What should the implementer do? And how do we need to tell the users that even a simple things like you are applying for a housing loan and the AI system rejects the loan and it's a life affecting decision for you as an individual.
Yes.
And you cannot say, no, I don't know why, but my AI system said no. And so there is a new topic with a lot of mathematical research happening in XAI, which is explainable AI. Whatever deep neural network, whatever complex model you do, the decision is taken for you and me as an individual. Can you please explain why you took a decision? What parameters actually got the weight? And so the responsible AI, fair, decent, should not be biased. And it would take basically what happens to the law if you are hitting human beings. And still there are, I think the first big actually law will be the European Act. I think the draft is available. People who are interested, your audience, they can look up the EU Act ordinance.
Okay.
The draft will give you idea of what are the big thinking. How do they want to regulate this industry?
Interesting to see how things will move on with the AI in picture. I think the scenario will dramatically change. Even the perception of the car manufacturers as well as the users.
Correct.
There's a lot of interesting days ahead. I mean,
a lot of interesting.
Sure. Okay. You have been known for creating high performance teams, which is very important, but at the same time it's very challenging for organizations today. So what is the thought process and action plan behind this?
Things which have really helped me in the long term. I think that I got support from my CFO and CEO. That we always felt that doing right for a customer, and even if you take with basically 1 quarter, 1 month hit, and it has never hurt me in my 40 years I am servicing global clients. So basically that we do the right thing, and it's because sometimes we get ourselves into some sort of a wrong commitments because the sales cycle, everybody is optimistic. And then when you start getting into delivery, there are some challenges. But stick with the customer, deliver, and become a customer's trusted partner. I think that is number one, which philosophy we always followed, and that really worked. And basically we said employees are not bad. They must be in a wrong role. And how do we give them the right role? How do we motivate them? And you can lead by example. I think that one of the things which even now I am basically happy that I did it was being up to date. I will attend classes even after 35 years of experience. And I've just read so much when I was, and people used to say, you're the COO, how do we get them? I said, it doesn't matter. Even if I take a book and then I use it in the toilet, that's fine. But when I'm sitting in the car, driver is driving. And if I don't have a conference call, I can always play some YouTube video and listen. And so I think leading by example, learning yourself, helping the people to, once you give them the right role, and then the right encouragement, I think people perform, and people really perform at high levels. It is not like, and we just have to keep encouraging them. In fact, I have started last 4 years of my life, all my presentations had only the old Hindi songs, one song and one line of text. And then everyone said this is the best presentation I've ever seen, because the song really conveyed what you're trying to tell. And so different ways of, you cannot be too serious everywhere. Okay, you need, because people are spending 14 hours a day. They need to have fun, they need to laugh in the office, they need to laugh in meeting. It doesn't mean that you don't discuss serious things, but you don't, everyone, you need not keep a glum face. Okay, you can make jokes.
Very much needed.
People and customer, I think these are the two things which really helped me, because there are people who have moved with me, all 3 companies. They have been working with me for 30 years. And because they just basically said, yeah, it's fun. And then let me join you in your next company, get me through. And then, so it is. That has been helpful. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been successful if I didn't have a team who they trust me, I trust them for a long time.
Right. So basically, the right role and right atmosphere.
Right atmosphere.
That made you to create the high performance team.
Then also customer, because the customer has to continue to give us work, and you can see, so kind of 10, 15 years, 20 years, customers continue. And it's because they basically know that Tech Mahindra is not going to come with a contract and say, no, we did not. It's a contract doesn't say, but we'll do it for you, we'll talk later. And then the customer always come through. They find another project to give you if there is no project. So we all know the focus. But sometimes we get little bit tunnel focus, and then say, this project, what is the profitability, and forgetting. Like they say, no, you look at the trees and then forget the forest. And so if you look at it, the number 1 biggest client is still Tech Mahindra, which is in excess of 500 million a year billing. And that is like that for many years because of the customer focus.
To the next question, like a very important question, that the organizations today seem to be struggling when it comes to the concrete and clear strategies for advanced technology adoption, and a top-down approach in this direction is very much required. So what are your views and recommendations in this area?
Yeah, I think that you hit the right point, because what happens is the pressures are there. Most companies are public limited, quarterly pressures. You have to face the investor, you have to pay TV cameras. And at the end of the basically quarterly board meeting. But at the same time, I think that if companies are not technology advanced and then trying to help the customers, for example, into navigating on the AI, navigating on the autonomous and the factory automations, and take it to the next level of automation, they're not going to succeed in the next few years. And where I've seen the example is, for example, the innovation group. And this is something that where CP has come and told me as the COO, you said, you can question everything else in the company. Don't question this group. So he basically said, I am approving this and please help them to innovate. And so you might have seen a lot of basically articles, etc., how Nikhil Malhotra, who's the innovation head, is doing huge amount of work with universities around the world, customers, and he's always looking 2 steps ahead. He is now working on quantum computing. He's now working on conversational AI, and he's always going ahead of time. And it has become part of customer visits, like pre-COVID when they used to happen. Customers always will visit the innovation lab and look at what they are doing. They immediately go back with the feeling that this is supported by the CEO. And then these guys are looking basically 5 years ahead, 3 years ahead, etc. And so I think the investments and then picking some of the good top guys whom you can retain, and it need not be 100%, 50% they build on customer projects, 50% on innovation projects for the company. And so everything has to come from the top, starting from talking about it, and like in all internal meetings, there will be a presentation on innovation, and that person will be called. There will be a prominent kind of position within the CXO organization that this innovation group is important, because some of the things are important. Visibly make it that this is important priority of the CEO. And how do you make sure the customers have come to know? Once the customers get interested, immediately that sales team will always come, start booking the innovation guys' time. That people want the best team for the customer, and then it's a chain reaction which starts.
True.
Then the pre-sales people say, okay, let me understand what the innovation team is doing, so I can write it in the proposal. That becomes the culture within the organization.
Right. Yeah. So it's the interest of the top management which flows down to the junior level management. So that's very important from the point of view of customer also. Am I correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, fine. That's it from my side. It was really absolute pleasure to have you in this show, and you very aptly put your thoughts. Many of them were quite practical in nature instead of going through the very bookish kind of language. But you really gave good examples, which is like people can easily relate to their problems or their situation. So thanks again for joining us in our show, and we look forward to connecting with you again. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you.